Go right ahead. It's
All
all
right.
you.
Welcome to Dementia Friendly Libraries. I'm Heather Ogilvie, Outreach Librarian for Bay County Public Library in Panama City, Florida. And with me here today is Marie Ingram, whose professional title is Older Adult Services Librarian at the Arapahoe Libraries in Englewood, Colorado. We are the past and future chairpersons of IGARD, which is our interest group for Alzheimer's and related dementias, of ALA's ASCLA, which is soon to become Library Services for Dementia and Alzheimer's, a division of ALA's ADLOS. So it's a very confusing time right now, but it's way more productive and fun than it sounds, and we'd love to have any of you join us on the IGARD team. So contact us if you have any questions. We'll have our information on the last slide. And as an aside, I think that I do way better in conversation than speaking sometimes, so feel free to ask questions and we will answer them try to answer them at the end of the discussion. I've been a librarian for about 25 years now, and I came to librarianship kind of late in life after a few other careers. I fell head over heels in love with it. And for a long time, I was a branch manager, and I loved everything about libraries, running the library, getting to know the community, and designing the library specifically to suit the needs of that community. The staff, the collection, the programs, everything. And I want to say, before I hurry past the starting point of this program on dementia, something personal about this subject. Of course, dementia happens in all kinds of situations, including early onset. But what I'm talking about today, and I think maybe what we're all talking about today, is primarily work with seniors. And I also want to say this, many people begin to think about the plight of cognitive impairment only when it affects a loved one. And this is heartbreaking. You're losing a person. The person that you know and love is fading right in front of you. Literally, they're slipping out of your arms and you get caught in the loss. You get caught in the endless arguments. No, you don't live here anymore. No, you can't drive anymore. No, you can't go outside by yourself. It just goes on. But I'm coming to this as a librarian working from the outside. I'm not losing anyone. I'm getting new friends every day. I don't have to argue. If my new friend wants to go home, I just say, where is it? Tell me about home. If my new friend is desperate to get out the door, I say, let's get our paperwork in order so we're ready to go when the time comes. Or let's sing a song while we wait. I might even change the subject with some new distraction or have a surprise from the library. Meanwhile, your person might be moving on with other people. So I just want you to know that I get that, and I think we all get that in doing this work. Whatever it is, the relationships and the interactions that we have, these relationships do matter. I've learned that while we don't remember exactly what happened, what words were spoken yesterday, or sometimes even a minute ago, we do remember how we felt. If you can turn a situation around from anger to laughter, that feeling is what your person is going to associate with your face, although they might not remember your name. And now I'm back on track. We're on the right slide, and I want to say, I know all of you are experts in finding information, so I'll just mention a couple of basic resources that work well, especially if you're presenting your ideas for programming to the public or to other library staff. The World Health Organization has excellent facts and data, easily accessible and readable. There are plenty of impressive graphics to make the point clearly that dementia requires our attention. World Health Organization provides a list of actions, practical ideas, things that we can do. Dementia can be a helpless, hopeless kind of subject to rally people around, and it doesn't have to be. There are 120 different kinds of dementia out there, and we have got to do something. We have to be involved in this, like it or not, because our community is immersed. Now I'm ready for the next slide. Here's a shot of the the Alzheimer's Association's South Carolina statistics. You need backup data when you get started on developing services for seniors with dementia. And all along, as you do this kind of advocacy work, sometimes you just have to prove that this is really happening to all of us. And it really is the business of the public library. And the Alzheimer's Association has excellent up-to-date data. There's some good news in the world of Alzheimer's. Family history still remains the best information available to determine your genetic disposition, and nothing at all is certain. And sometimes that's all the good news we can have. There's been a lot of progress in slowing down dementia, and we haven't found any drug yet that really works for this. And the percentage of older people developing dementia is actually decreasing. Although this is confusing because the number of people diagnosed is increasing because so many of us are getting older. I partner with my local Alzheimer's Association. It's a great resource for information and to find excellent, committed people who will help you with your work. Next slide. Librarians build strong communities. You've probably heard this pronouncement, which grew, I believe, from the Libraries Transform initiative. Eric Kleinenberg said in Palaces for the People, which is a great book if you haven't read it yet, everyday life in libraries is a democratic experiment. Social infrastructure provides the setting and context for social participation, and the library is among the most critical form of social infrastructure we have. This is what my outreach and probably your outreach looks like, a democratic experiment in learning inside and outside the library. The intellectual and social connections supported by library services are the foundation for stronger communities. And the simplest foundation of our strength is inclusion. It is maybe the easiest concept to describe and the most difficult to achieve. In my work, I look for ways to engage the non-users and stretch the library outside the walls so that, in effect, everyone becomes aware of the library's larger role in our community. And we belong in the community. We can't isolate ourselves in a building. Sure, our library is a palace, but our people are living out there, outside the library. Our first duty is to level the playing field, create learning opportunities that expand access and challenge the barriers placed upon ourselves by any number of socioeconomic and social barriers. The bonus is that we have great buildings with bathrooms and air conditioning and heat and books and fantastic, helpful people and astonishing resources. Next slide. 4 years ago, I was given a brand new assignment. Get out of the library. Go out and find people who are not in the library and teach them. That was my literal job description. And that's when I began my own personal outreach services. It didn't take long at all to realize that there are thousands of people who are not in our libraries. People that we may not be including in our services. Many of these people I discovered right away are seniors, and you can't spend very much time in the world of seniors without finding out that cognitive impairment is having a profound impact on how we live. When I considered how to bring the library experience to people who are not in the library, I thought of all the components, the books, the staff, the reading areas, the computers, the programs. What is really happening? What is the magic component? What makes people say the word library with reverence? That magic is exactly what we need to bring to the people in our communities, inside or outside the library. Our mission is to be a dynamic center for learning, a place of discovery for all ages, birth to death, everyone. I think becoming dementia friendly is really one more step toward becoming truly inclusive, regardless of age, ability, or identity. What I'm talking about primarily today is the work I do in my community with people who can't, don't, or won't visit the library. People who are living with dementia, isolation, infirmity, or other mobility issues. People who are not in the library are my people. And here is why I work so hard. This picture brings it all home for me. If you go and visit some senior living arrangements, not all of them, of course, but many, there is so much loneliness, confusion. We're awkward, the way we separate the old people from the young people in our society, the working class from the retired, the well from the sick, the sapient from the addled. It may be a well-kept secret, but as we age, our skills and abilities can diminish. Our eyesight weakens, our hearing fades, our memory blurs, our balance wobbles. Neurologists say that given time, we might all be entering the realm of dementia. Any of these changes, individually and together, can heighten anxiety. And anxiety is a monster when it comes to thinking. The isolation in this photo is not unusual. For many people in our communities, this is how we live now. But why? Dementia is regularly accompanied by anxiety, confusion, and distress. And for the caregiver, the situation creates overwhelming responsibility and a heavy burden of stress. However, I find in my work on a daily basis, there is always a bright place, a memory, a conversation, a story, laughter. We are learning things all the time, and I believe that we as humans live to learn. And are we not all on this spectrum of aging? All people are in the library family. Why is isolation and loneliness so common? Our commitment in the library to foster a welcoming, open, creative learning environment is for all people. This is why I believe becoming dementia friendly is vital to supporting stronger communities. We must not let the memories that remain, the joys, the sorrows, the stories be lost easily. So much life remains to be lived and so much to be shared. Next slide. So let's talk. Personally, my most powerful tool is books because that's where I'm coming from. And I think the magic wand for everyone has got to be music. I was so excited when I began this work and encountered the work of Mary Beth Reidner, whom we will meet at the next webinar on this subject. I learned from her that people with Alzheimer's continue to read long after the diagnosis is made. And that for me was super exciting. And conversation. Conversation, which is totally easy, is the most human and humanistic thing we do. It's where we discover our capacity for empathy, and it's where we experience the joy of being heard, of being understood. It's been my experience that conversation remains crucial even as we lose those skills that make it seem effortless. I usually start my visits to a new location or group with a kind of freestyle book club, and most of my regular programs remain in this format. I pack, and this is how I roll pretty much all the time, I pack a manageable size cart, stuff that I can lift easily in and out of my car and move around with an assortment of books, current events, simple art, word games, a few manipulatives, and some spontaneous show and tells, anything that comes to me on my way to the day. As an outreach librarian, most of my programs are happening outside the libraries in respite care, memory care units, and mixed groups in assisted living facilities. But I do the same kinds of things and use the same techniques when I meet people inside the library or in home care situations. The best way I can describe our book club experience is a campfire model. A little heap of interesting books works just like a crackling fire, and we're all just talking up a storm before we know it. I start every interaction with something that's happening right now, because I'm always traveling. I frequently get my ideas on the way. And I listen to NPR in my car, and I get whatever is hot in my mind when I walk in, that's what I'm going to start talking about. Last year, there was that supernova, and I heard about it on my way into one of the places I go to. And so immediately I got a picture of the supernova on my iPad, and we have a technology experience because everyone's looking at the magical iPad. And we've got the wow factor of a supernova story. Or maybe something's happening when I arrive, like if I walk into the end of an art class, I can talk about the painting, but I try to talk about, to ground us in the now. Oftentimes there's a lot of confusion going on in the world of dementia, and I find it grounding if we all can focus on something simple, tangible, that's happening right now and is mildly exciting. Not over the top exciting, but mildly, comfortably exciting. Next, I talk about the library. I always talk a little bit about the library because you probably encounter this also in your work. Everybody loves the library in a fond, kind of abstract way. So a library update is always a happy moment. It's a good reminder of who I am and why I'm visiting. If I'm in the library, I'll show them some cool stuff that's in the library just to get things going. And this also, by the way, is great marketing because you never know who's going to perk up and listen to your elevator speech. I have tangential conversations about the library with caregivers, relatives, visitors, aides, and clergy. There are a lot of potential listeners. And this is the background of support you want to be aware of. The people who would support the library or could support the library with word of mouth praise and with voting when the time comes. You need effective marketing to support continuing growth and development, and this talking about the library in situations, any situation, is cool. Many people, this is also about the library, many people in the early stages of dementia, if they had transportation and easy access and someone they feel safe with, they would like to visit the library. And when it does happen, they are really delighted by it. But I find in my own library and with the people I visit, not many do visit the library. And that suggests to me that in spite of seeing ourselves, library staff, as patient, kind, nice, attentive, open, we may not always appear that way to seniors of advanced age or different cognitive abilities. And that brings us around again to why we have to talk about being dementia friendly. I get a lot of insight from firsthand reporting on how a library looks to seniors affected by dementia, either personally or from a friend or relative. The library is too crowded. The library is too confusing. There's too much stuff. I can't find anything. Nobody listens. People mumble, and they don't want to help you. I think you notice, and I notice, that these are all problems we could easily fix. The first and most common question I get from people directly affected by dementia is, can you help me? When I meet someone for the first time, they practically always say, can you help me? And the second thing that they say is, I need to go home. So these are questions that we can be ready for in the library or wherever we are when we begin to work with dementia. Next slide. Here's a sample of what a typical book club what I might accomplish at a typical book club. everyone does something, might do something a little bit different while we sit around. On this particular day, we talked about books, and the most popular book was the book called Crap at My Parents' House, which was super popular. This book I got months and months out of use from, because everyone took turns. They look at the captions, they read them aloud. We all shout with laughter, and it's super fun. And Quick Pops happened to be a little promotional book for a popsicle maker. And pictures of food are great conversation starters. And a book with lots of pictures of food, people are going to love it. Any food book with catchy illustrations, I take with me, because they are going to be some kind of trip, either memory lane or food interest, but it's a good kind of book. And the N vitamin that I had with me on that day is a book about nature. And I treated this like kind of a regular book talk, and suddenly we were talking about the courtyard and what did you see when you went outside last time, and we had birds and plants and flowers and all sorts of conversations. Word searches are, especially word searches with large print, are very effective. I never leave home without word searches. And people who enjoy word searches are passionate about them. Coloring pages also have broad appeal. This coloring page is kind of a Zentangle one, and I try not to get too complicated with the Zentangle. They need larger spaces to color in, but they like adult pictures. And something that can be, or could possibly completed in one sitting, can be really satisfying. Now this map of the United States is my all-time most successful interactive page. Time after time, people will look at this map and zero right in on the exact spot where they were born or where they spent their childhood. People who have never spoken to me, I may have known them for months, and if I bring this with me, they will happily draw a star on their birthplace and write their names on the map. Next slide. At the beginning of any baby or toddler story time that I do, I tell the children and their parents, I have no particular expectations for behavior or listening. No one has to sit still. If I'm not capturing their interest, I'm glad they let me know. The same is true in a dementia-friendly book club. The important part is positive engagement. So I suggest introduce challenging ideas and don't be afraid to try anything. I've had luck with beading, polymer clay, ukuleles, makerspace, cup stacking. I've had butterfly walks and a song fest, pool noodle polo, any kind of thing with beach balls can be a fun interlude, and always spontaneous dance parties. But you can arrive on the spot with 20 plans or no plans, and it will work out. You just have to smile, listen, and be prepared to sing, often at a moment's notice. You don't have to be a good singer either, so don't worry about that. I think that you can expect to be astonished, because I am every day. You never know what will work, but something always does. I always try to have fidgets with me, games, puzzles, art supplies. No matter what our age is or our cognitive ability, some of us always need to be occupied, and some of us prefer to sit still. We all get pretty excited by a spontaneous game of catch or a squishy ball that lights up. So whatever you find along the way, pick it up and bring it with you. Next. These are pictures from the longest day, which is the Alzheimer's Association Day of Awareness. I always take, this is June 21st every year, and I usually spend that week celebrating. Last year, I was able to convince a few places I visit to allow my regular storytime families to visit the senior centers with me. And the results were magical. Children are the absolute best at bringing spontaneous happiness, and I encourage multi-generational activities whenever I can. The formula that works so well with children works for all of us. If I find myself at a sticking point sometimes, or I can't think what to do next, I remember: talk, sing, read, write, play. There's always something in that group of activities that is going to work where you are. And on a side note, aside from a 4-year-old, there is no better assistant than a teenager. Just like the rest of us, teenagers have experience with dementia and have a natural talent at going with the flow. So if I can have a teen with me, I know that I am going to have some interesting conversations. Whatever reality we are in, it's just fine. When I have an opportunity to have a guest star, I take it. I accept partnerships wherever I find them. So invite your friends with you and mix it up. Everything works when you're having fun. Next slide. I want to talk for a minute about getting started, because it doesn't always seem easy if you're just beginning to work with people with dementia. A new place or a new group can be intimidating. I spend the first in every visit finding out what interests people, what do they enjoy, and what might surprise them in a good way when I come back, and what might expand the experience that they're having now in the place where they live. Just walking into the room can be difficult. Sometimes you're faced with just blank stares from every direction, or everyone is fast asleep. So I just usually power through that with kind of smiling, chatting a little bit, unpacking my basket. I answer questions and I say hello and I introduce myself, and I just work with whatever comes up. And then this is typical, especially with a new group, the things that I'll hear people say: what are you going to do? What are we supposed to do? You're from the library? Oh, I can't read anymore. I can't see. To that, I say, oh, nobody has to read anything. You can if you want, of course. I got lots of books. But I just came over to talk. Would you like to sit down with me? I've got a lot of stuff here, and I plan on having some fun. And then I put things out where people can see them and touch them and use them if they want to. And some people will be immediately drawn to coloring or word searches or sorting things or puzzles. And if I can get a few people seated around a table, I start talking about something that interests me, so that if it interests me, then I sound fresher and more exciting than if it doesn't. And I am careful never to begin by describing all the possible activities I have with me. A lot of choices is not a good idea because it can be overwhelming, but I need to have a lot of choices with me. So instead, I work on engaging everyone in conversation or looking together at one thing on the table. And I use the books to activate us, like a yoga book can get us moving around a little bit. And even if we can't get out of our chairs, sometimes we do hand yoga, which is a really fun activity, and it's good for all of us. If I have a book of songs or a children's picture book that is a song, I can usually get people to be interested in singing that. And anything funny will make everyone laugh out loud. And you will be amazed at what kind of sophisticated humor works with people with dementia just as well as it works with any of us. Books about the past, history books, and especially books with picture really get us talking. Our own history is the most compelling. What happened when we were children and what happened when we were born. Anything with animals is fun. I want to mention that Jennifer Holland wrote a few books titled Unlikely Friends and Unlikely Loves. And these are good examples of books because they have small stories and good pictures to go with them. And it's a good example of something that works pretty well for a group in which there are people with dementia. I listen to everyone and I take copious notes. I'm a note taker, but I find that people love my note taking because if they don't have anything else that interests them, they'll be very interested in what I'm writing. So it works both ways. And remembering specific details about people really helps. I've had a Vietnam parachute jumper, fishermen, pilots. beekeeper, lots of teachers, nurses, doctors, and then I know what kind of resources to bring next time to interest them. So be present, it all works. Show up, smile, keep coming back, and prepare to be loved. This work is guaranteed to be rewarding. As long as money is not your thing, you'll get buckets of love. Oh, and don't forget, everybody dances. I've read studies that have identified dancing as the single most effective form of exercise in delaying or slowing the path or the advent of dementia. Try it. You'll be amazed. I haven't talked at all about the hiatus that we're having right now with COVID-19. And this is an extreme challenge. But the activities that I'm describing, they have not come to a halt. I'm not there because the places I go are not allowing visitors in, and I'm working from home, but the staff and the caregivers are finding new ways every day to do the same kinds of things that we did all together. They keep things lively and positive, and we stay connected with Facebook and occasionally with drive-by visits or window visits. And I've offered everybody Zoom and FaceTime. And so far, everyone has said, no, we're not ready for that. But in the last week, I've gotten a couple of phone calls from places that are ready to start trying using some FaceTime technology. So I'm very excited to try that. And I'm also excited to see how 4 years of working together creatively has really paid off for this crisis. And then I have one more slide of some of my these are some of the books that have inspired and influenced me. Palaces for the People, I've already mentioned. It's a reminder of how the public library is the most awesome institution ever invented, and we're lucky to work in one. And sometimes we all need to be reminded of that. Being Mortal introduced me to the concept of narrowing down a bucket list to the essentials. What do we really want out of life? Old Age, A Beginner's Guide is just a moving introduction to a diagnosis of Parkinson's. And Dementia Reimagined is all you never knew about the history of dementia and where we are right now. Why We Sleep is a fascinating book and a look at how important sleep is in maintaining our brains. And if you're looking for books for families in your community, Mercy Suarez Changes Gears has a really nice, it's a chapter book for middle grade readers. And there's a beloved grandparent with Alzheimer's who's really well done. And Stay, the picture book in the corner, is stunning. It's a book on what really matters in the face of mortality. And you can get this book. It speaks to you if you're 3 or if you're 100. It's a beautiful book. The newest book in my collection is Like Falling Through a Cloud. And this was written by Eugenia Zuckerman, who is, at the time of writing, was about 2 years into her diagnosis of Alzheimer's. She's a professional flute player, and this is a book of her poetry. Most importantly, this is kind of a raw collection of thoughts, and you can visibly and viscerally feel those thoughts as they pass through what feels like a fishnet of brain support in the Alzheimer's world. And now it is my pleasure to pass this along to Marie.
Thank you, Heather. Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so I am one of 2 older adult services librarians at my library, and I take the Rem Dragon program to most of the memory care units in our county. And the mission of this program is to spark curiosity and joy, and to really take time to engage and connect with each resident who is there. And we kind of all sit around the same table and we pass things around like a show and tell. So that's kind of the stage for this program. Each month I take a different theme in this red wagon on the at the bottom of the screen here. And I do different decades, different holidays, fashion throughout history, nature, and toys throughout history with a couple more. But my absolute favorite wagon to do is the Halloween one in October. And this picture here is of a resident absolutely loving the program. I bring a lot of Halloween props, both antique ones and ones from today that I just went to the store and grabbed a new witch hat here that she's wearing. And we have an absolute blast just trying things on and just being silly. One of the games I like to throw in every so often is a would you rather, clips of paper that I pull out of a bowl and we all say what we would rather do. So for the Halloween one, it's questions like, would you rather be a witch or a vampire? And it's so silly, but they have so much fun. It's great. And another activity that I do during this program is time slips, which I'll talk about in just a couple slides. And music, along with what Heather was saying, is so powerful, and it's often a good way to get everyone engaged at the beginning of the program, maybe sing a couple songs together. And I've made a music book of lyrics just in Word. It's really simple. And I pass that around and we'll sing a couple songs. And music really brings everyone together in such an interesting way. The staff are usually shocked that the residents are talking to each other after we sing these songs. And it really boosts engagement. And one thing I do want to say about doing programs in memory units is I usually require a staff member at the facility to be present with us at all times. They know their residents a lot more intimately than we do, and anything can happen, but it's always great to have a staff member who knows them really well in case any medical issues come up or someone needs the restroom or something like that. So these are some of the books I like to bring to every wagon, no matter what the theme is. So kind of like what Heather was saying, you don't know necessarily what is going to work out. So you can come with a plan and that they may not be into that plan that day. And so these are my backup books because I know that they absolutely love them. It is a series by Pictures to Share. It is a UK series. But they do sell them in the US, and I managed to get my hands on quite a few of them. These are just two, but some of my favorites. And what I love about these books, they're made especially for people who have memory loss, and they're not childish in any way. And that's really one of the markers that I use when picking out books for this age group is I don't like to bring childish books. And you can see here they have black and white pictures, they have color pictures, they incorporate classic paintings, and then the words on the page are an interesting quote or a snippet from a famous song. And we can look at these pictures and they spark conversations. And they really are a wonderful series. I highly recommend them. So check those out. And then I also bring these Joy for All companion pets. If you have not seen one yet, they are actually really magical. So they have the cat, the dog, and then in the lower right, they've just released a kitten, which is half the size, weight, and price. So they're awesome. But these cats, I can't tell you the magic that they have created. Everyone, unless they absolutely hate cats, which I don't often find someone who does, but not everyone does love cats, they make everybody smile. And I've had residents start talking to cats and the staff are like, hey, come here. And like all the staff are coming over and they're being like, look, Mary is talking. And it really, if like a resident really doesn't talk ever, they will start talking to these animals, and it is so amazing. So I definitely recommend Joy for All. And then time slips is the other activity that I bring with me. And if you haven't heard of time slips, it is a group creative storytelling activity. They have their own website, timeslips.com. And they do offer training and certification. So I was lucky enough to take the certification through my library, and it is, I have an example here. So you just have a photograph, like one that's on the screen right now, and you just ask open-ended questions to the group and see what happens. And they end up creating the funniest stories, and it really just highlights the fact that people with dementia are still highly creative, very funny, and love just participating with each other in activities like this. So I'm going to quickly read one of the stories that one of my groups came up with for this picture. It's called, they titled it, Oops. He's been in trouble sneaking out of the cookie jar. The dog says he wants the people to get the hell out of there. He says, where's mine? The dog just snook a cookie. Chester is his name, smart dog. The boy is pretty smart too. He's hiding from the mom around the corner. His mom would say, what are you into now, if she found him? Next, they have a little cleaning up to do so mom doesn't find out. I bet the dog would love to help clean up. So it's just a really short, beautiful story. They usually take about 10 minutes to make together. And it's just something I always highly recommend to people that are starting out, because it's very low budget and highly creative and a lot of fun. And I have just started, along with Heather, trying to figure out how to still engage our relationships with memory units during COVID-19. And I recently created this modified rummage wagon where I collected a bunch of books around one of the themes that I would usually do. And then I printed out a bunch of items and laminated them as well. So I printed out a fact sheet of fads of the 50s, and I printed out some original Charlie Brown comic strips, because that Charlie Brown was created in the 50s. And so I put together a whole bunch of stuff, and then I wrote out a little page for the staff member. So I think part of it is making it as easy as possible for the staff to understand what all these items are and how they all relate to each other, so they can essentially do the program without you even having to be there. And I know that the staff are always very, very busy, quite overwhelmed, and so I like to make it as easy as possible. So I just put together this little cheat sheet and put it all in a canvas bag, and I dropped it off and picked it up a month later, and they absolutely loved it. The staff said, thank you, thank you. They were running out of things to do, because at this point it's been 5 months and they're not allowed to have outsiders in their memory units at all. And so the activities directors for these facilities are kind of at their wits' end, I think, from the sounds of it anyway, from this one, with things to do. So they were just so happy to have something else to focus on for that month. And I can't see if you're all typing in the chat, but we'll definitely get to questions at the end here. And partnerships.
Partnerships. Well, these are pictures of one of my big partners, which is the Alzheimer's Association. Some of the other agencies I partner with are the Local Council on Aging, the Florida State Department of Elder Affairs, our local NAACP. I'm on the executive committee of our NAACP person, the education chair, and through that, I make a lot of connections that help in the world of dementia. And I work with lots of local faith-based organizations, because in many cases, that's where people are centering their caregiver workshops and, or maybe just their connections with one another. And and all kinds of local senior living arrangements, communities, assisted living facilities, nursing homes, and caregiver support groups. For me personally, professional organizations are my lifeline too. I work alone. There's no one else who does outreach in my library, and sometimes it feels as if the people in my library don't really know what I'm doing at all. And I'm happy that I have colleagues at ALA and PLA, and especially my iGuard team and the ABOS team, the Bookmobile organization. Lots and lots of opportunities to network and share ideas and do programming together. So that's very exciting. I partner with nonprofits and local businesses and with the schools. And I feel every time I make a new partner or work with a new group of people, I feel like we're growing stronger through this collaboration. So I suggest being open to serendipitous relationships and personal collaboration, because when you reach out to the people in your community, especially those with the least access to resources, and you find meaningful ways to connect, you're building community for everyone. And I think that at the public library, we can lead the way in creating dynamic partnerships and these connections will help us in all sorts of ways in our community. So that's it for partnerships for me. Thank you.
And we did want to talk a little bit about maybe finding if there's you have a local hospital that's actively doing research on Alzheimer's. They're a great resource as well. And even partnering with the doctors there to come and do presentations for the public. We've done that before. That is a great idea. Your area agencies on aging. We are also part of ours, and we go to the monthly meetings, and that's really where you develop the partnerships with the local cities and other nonprofits and create your own little network local to you. And then we are not from South Carolina, but we did look up your government resources. So here are those two for you there. And that is it for us. So thank you very much. Please email us if you have any questions. And I'm about to stop the share so I can look at the chat because I don't know how to do both. Hold on a second here.
Great. What questions do we have? Go ahead and type in chat, or you can unmute if you'd like, if anybody has any questions. Let's see. Oh, can you post the slide with the email addresses? We will be sending the slides out as well. So, but if you wanted to put that up, I can keep an eye on the chat.
Okay.
Question about how we can implement some of these things under the current circumstances with COVID. Do you have any ideas?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of it is just cold calling. I guess if you don't already have a relationship with the assisted living in your area, is calling them and just saying, hey, you know, I'm from the library, and what are your needs right now? Like, are your residents bored? Do they want connection? And just start that conversation with them. One of the most challenging things I have found doing this particular job is the high level of turnover at these facilities, especially for the jobs of activities coordinator, which is who you usually would be working with. So you constantly have to be reaching out and starting new relationships with the new person that has just taken over. Usually about every 9 to year and a half, 9 months to a year and a half, I get 2 new activities directors who've never heard of me, have no idea how amazing this this program is. You have to just keep reaching out.
That's a very good point. I don't know any
Yes.
activity directors who've stayed longer than 6 or 8 months.
We have one that has been with me for 3 years, the whole time I've been doing it, and I just can't, only one out of like 10. It's very
And can you show the previous slide with the South Carolina organizations also? And there's a question, how long is the program? Like
I do mine, I aim for 45 minutes.
45 minutes.
But if I read the room, if they are extremely exhausted and tired and it's been 30 minutes, I'll just really slowly start packing up. Usually takes about 5 to 10 minutes to pack up. And I found that works best for me. How about you, Heather?
That's really the same for me. I plan an hour, and then I watch. If everyone's asleep in 30 minutes, then I'll slip away. And if people are still clamoring for something, I can stay a little longer. I usually have the flexibility to do that.
And there's a question about if the residents are confined to their rooms, do you have any activities or things you can do to kind of take to them or do, individually or?
I haven't had that happen. Usually the staff will bring out people who are interested in the program and we'll bring them out to the area that we're doing the program. So I don't have anything for that.
I don't know right now. There's no place that I work with that's allowing visitors in at all. So I have seen them do programs, in-house programs, when people are confined to their room, that people will come to their doorways and then the staff will present something in the hall. Like the staff maybe reading a funny story or doing a funny dance or something. But
okay. Yeah, I suspect a lot of places are still not open for outside programming as yet.
right.
Do you ever bring food items as part of the program, or do you have to watch the residents' diets and the food monitoring for health issues?
I've never tried because I am terrified of giving someone something they're allergic to. So I usually show up either right before lunch for the program or right after lunch. So they've already eaten or they've had a snack, or they have a snack that the staff have provided during the program. So no, I don't ever bring any.
That's what I do too. It's always either they've just eaten or they're waiting for the next meal, and oftentimes the meal times work as great punctuation for beginning or ending a program. So it works out pretty well not having food, and it's easier not to carry the food in and out or try to find something safe. So.
Okay. What kind of sensory items do you find that you recommend?
Oh, I have a whole big box. I didn't even touch on that. Kinetic sand is a lot of fun. But I do make sure I bring the actual sand color because I've had a few issues with silly putty where it looks like gum, and a gentleman just like real quick popped it in his mouth and I was like, oh no, before I knew what I was doing, I was in there and like grabbing the silly putty out of his mouth. So kinetic sand, but the natural color. I don't ever want to confuse them thinking it's candy. A lot of the sensory items that are listed for autistic people who have autism work wonders as well, because they're just fun. They're brightly colored, as long as they don't look too childish. They're just a lot of fun, something to just keep your hand busy. If it's a silly squishy ball, I've got these squishy unicorn balls that when you squish them, like the balls come out of the unicorn, and it's really like fun and gross looking, and they find it hilarious. And so that's great too.
That's the same thing that I do. I got my first fidgets as kits for kids with autism, and then I discovered that having those with me, people love them. Just stuff that you can fiddle around with, and we have endless fun fiddling around with practically everything.
And the squishy balls, they tend to just spontaneously start a game with each other of rolling or throwing the ball to each other, and it will go on for, I'll just let it go on for as long as they're all really happy.
Yeah, they do. They do.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful surprise.
And we did get a question about the second of these webinars. So I posted the link to that program in the chat. It's going to be in September, and it covers programming ideas. So, and I believe that's different presenters. So I wouldn't expect you to speak to what they're going to cover at that time. But
Yeah.
the link does have the description as well as registration info. So
they're going to cover things we didn't cover. So I definitely, if you do have the opportunity, highly recommend to attend that one as well.
Yes.
Thanks. Any other questions? It looks like that's all for the moment. Whoop, let's see. Thank you all for attending. Thank you for presenting. It's definitely a very detailed topic. We will be posting the recording probably within a few days to a week, and I'll send out an email with the handouts which have all of the links that we talked about here. So
Thank you for having us.
thank you for being here.
That's